Hey guys, today we're going to talk about what your options are for the next couple of days for ELA at home. Now you can absolutely follow the AMI schedule of day 7 and day 8 for your writing. And so what it says on ELA for that is, of course, your 30 minutes of reading and then journaling about your reading. But then it says that you can begin to plan and write another reflective narrative. So day 7, you will plan, so that's today, day 7, you will plan your reflective narrative. You can find the graphic organizer and completely plan another reflective narrative. The thing you'll be writing about is, think about a time you were successful at accomplishing a goal. What were the challenges you faced? How did you deal with those difficulties? Write a story about this success and reflect on what you learned. And then tomorrow you would take your graphic organizer and you would completely write out a whole reflective narrative. Now, many of you may feel kind of tired of writing complete reflective narratives, and you may need a little break from that. And so this is an optional lesson that you can do in place of planning today and writing tomorrow. So what you're going to do if you decide to do your lesson this way is you're going to take a student from years past, you're going to take their reflective narrative, you're going to look at what parts that they're missing, and you are going to make a plan today about what you can include to make the narrative better. And then tomorrow you are going to go in and you're going to add those parts. So for many of you, that may sound more fun. And so this is what you would do in place of planning your reflective narrative about a time that you were successful at accomplishing a goal, and then writing the reflective narrative about the goal. And so let me read the narrative out loud to you, and then you decide if you want to add to this narrative or if you would prefer just to write your own. This narrative, the student titled it The Chicken Coop. Here we go. Sweat dripped from my face when I stepped out of the car. Normal sweat is from the heat, but this sweat is from nerves. I could hear the chickens squawking at me as I entered the chicken coop. I love to eat chicken and talk about chicken, but one thing people don't know about me is that I'm scared to death of the chicken nuggets with legs. When I walked into my coop, my mom told me to reach behind the chicken's booty and grab the egg. There lay the oval treasure in a nest of moldy hay. It looked like it should be cold to the touch, but when I reached for the egg, it felt warm. That was one fresh egg. When I grabbed the egg, the whole chicken woke up, gave me a strange look, and waddled out of the chicken coop door. Then it started pecking me so hard I started to bleed. My body started to tremble when the blood hit the ground. My face turned pale and my heart pounded so fast. I thought the chicken was going to kill me. So I ran, ripping grass up from the ground, but the chicken was faster. When the feathery beast finally caught up to me, he tripped me and then started to peck me again. Every peck made my skin want to explode. Why does it hate me? Is it because I took its egg? Why me? My mind raced. The scream that came from my mouth sounded like a scream from a horror movie. My mom heard my girl-like scream and rushed toward me. I caught one final glimpse of my mom and then passed out. A few minutes later, when I woke up in the coop, my family told me what had happened. They told me that my mom saw me and that I passed out, and she kicked the chicken farther than a football field. I had never felt that much pain in my life, and now I will always remember to never take a chicken's egg because they are vicious creatures. Just because something is little does not mean that it can't be feared. Okay, so whenever you first read that narrative, it sounds pretty good and pretty entertaining. And so what we're going to talk about is, what did this writer do really well and what can you do to improve it? So if I'm looking at my rubric and I look at what I just read, I'm thinking right now that this narrative is at a 4. Notice that I underlined in green what the writer did well. It definitely has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has some specific details, But in order to get from a 4, which is a good, to a 5, which is what we're kind of aiming for right now, and maybe even to a 6 for some of you, you need many specific details, and you also need descriptions of a critical setting, critical object, and or a critical character. So whenever I look at my chicken coop, the main thing that this person did really well was their main event. They really took that attack from the chicken and they stretched out that attack, and it felt like slow motion. So I feel like as a writer, I don't really need to do very much to the main event. But the things that this writer didn't do, which is also going to help us to make it longer, was this writer didn't really include a critical setting describing the barnyard and the chicken coop. It doesn't have much of a critical object, and we're going to talk about what that critical object could be. It's missing a whole section of suspense. It goes from the chicken coming out and looking at them, looking at the main character, and then all of a sudden it attacks. But it misses that all of a sudden part. It misses all that build up to the suspense before the attack. And then it also doesn't really have a critical character. And so let's look and talk about what you can do if you choose to do this assignment. I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to flip it around so that you can now look at the writing.